from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program, Wednesday night edition of the program. Happy to be here. If you want to give us a call and join the show live, feel free to give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And the gentleman, the dad who defended his son who was protesting outside of an abortion clinic, Mark Houck. He is now suing the Biden administration and the Department of Justice for malicious and retaliatory prosecution. And, of course, we had the third presidential debate. We've got some clips of that we're going to bring you. Let me see. There's something else I wanted to hear. There's a breaking story that the Associated Press, CNN, New York Times, and Reuters all had journalists with Hamas during the October 7th massacre. Just imagine that. We criticize people all the time for, being on the subway or being wherever they are and seeing a fight break out and, busting out their camera phone to get a video. Meanwhile, we've got the media here watching these people plan an ambush. And if that is, in fact, the case, that is absolutely disgusting. There's also subpoenas that have been issued by the House Oversight Committee. Chairman James Comer has issued subpoenas for Hunter Biden, the president's son, for James Biden, the president's brother, and for Rob Walker to get their testimony before Congress. The big question is, will there be a subpoena for Joe Biden in the days to come? We shall find out and see what happens as a result of these testimonies. I have a feeling we actually may, in fact, have to compel that testimony. And if it can be, I can't see Biden going, okay, I'll do it. I'm pretty sure he's going to come up with something, I got hairy legs, I've got a country to run, I've got an election to try and win, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he's going to come willingly. But let's see what happens with that. And then there's also a story that's out about the wife of a judge, in particular, the judge, Arthur Engeron, the judge in Trump's New York City civil fraud trial, who regularly beats up President Trump on social media. There was one image that she shared I saw on social media today, and had somebody kind of doing graffiti with a spray can on a wall with the words F Trump. So we don't know if the judge is biased, but we do know about the bias from his wife. So one could likely suspect that he is also biased against the former president. But again, that's not conclusive, right? Again, I say this all the time. I live on the East Coast. In New Jersey, there's not a ton of Republicans, even less conservatives. So you could presume pretty much that if you see me with a female suitor, that she may not agree with my politics, because there's very few people that do in this part of the country. So I won't jump to any conclusions there, but based on his demeanor and the way he's handled himself thus far, I'd say they're probably two peas in a pod. Now, big story here. At least this is the one that caught my attention, because I think this is pretty interesting stuff. You've got the United States Attorney for, Massachusetts, who's now made a statement about a network of sophisticated high-end brothels that cater to politicians and military officials. This is coming out from the Department of Justice. Listen to this.
According to the charging documents, the buyers who made up this ring hail from an array of professions. They are doctors, they are lawyers, they're accountants, they're elected officials, they are executives at high-tech companies and pharmaceutical companies, they're military officers, government contractors, professors, scientists. Pick a profession, they're probably represented in this case. They are the man who fueled this commercial sex ring. And the government alleges that there are potentially hundreds of individuals who took these services as commercial sex buyers. The buyers in this case are not charged today. They're not named in the affidavit. But I want to emphasize, this is an investigation that's just getting going, and we're in the very early stages.
That's Joshua Levy, acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, giving the details of a high-end brothel network involving wealthy clients in Massachusetts and Virginia. This is reported by the New York Post that this network of sophisticated high-end brothels was frequented by politicians and military officials and government contractors and is now being investigated by federal authorities. So far, 3 individuals have been arrested in connection with operating the bordellos in Washington and Virginia. Commercial sex buyers allegedly included officials, like he mentioned, from various sectors, and the investigation is ongoing. But Han Lee, 41 years old, of Cambridge, Massachusetts, James Lee, 68, of Torrance, California, Junmi Young Lee, 30 years old, of Dedham, Massachusetts, have all been charged with conspiracy to coerce and entice. Let me see here what else they might have, to travel and to engage in illegal sexual activity. Interesting, right? Han Lee, James Lee, and Jun Myung Lee. I don't know if these 3 Lees are connected by way of surname, like last name, but very, very interesting. Very interesting. Wondering if this is part of an overall honey trap type of influence operation by, a foreign government. Anyway, these 3 individuals allegedly operated multiple brothels out of high-end apartments in Fairfax, Virginia, Tysons, Virginia, and less than an hour's drive from Washington, D.C. Authorities discovered these brothels in Cambridge and Watertown, Massachusetts, as well. The interstate prostitution ring had been operating since July of 2020, according to the authorities. Going on to say that it's alleged that the defendants collectively established the infrastructure for brothels in multiple states, which they used to persuade, induce, and entice women, primarily Asian women, to travel to Massachusetts and Virginia to engage in prostitution. The defendants allegedly rented the apartments for up to $3,600 a month and charged their patrons between $350 and $600 per hour, depending on the services they were requesting. These whorehouses were advertised online according to the charging documents and disguised by pretending to offer nude Asian models for professional photography at upscale studios. Wow. And there's like a menu here. It says donations for Cara, Tina, or Mimi. There's no discount for BB. If you get caught making direct deals with girls, we won't accept any more appointments from you. Also, if you go into the GFE and upgrade to BB, please pay first. Do not share with other girls. They don't like it. GFE services, 30 minutes for $240, 60 minutes for $340, up to 2 shots, it says here. 90 minutes, $540, $120, 120 minutes, $640. BB without CD. I don't know the lingo here, but apparently that's a coded menu offering different experiences. The verification process for interested sex buyers was stringent, according to authorities. Prostitution customers being required to travel to provide these 3 individuals with their full names, email addresses, and phone numbers, employer, and references in order to book an appointment. So imagine that. Just imagine that. You go to a brothel and you're a politician or a government contractor, and you say, yes, I'd like an appointment. They say, well, sorry, sir, we're not going to see you because, we need your references. Can you, the madam at your last whorehouse, would she vouch for you? This comedy writes itself. Anyway, each of these people faces 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 if convicted. And we'll find out a little bit more about this in a little bit. But I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a few different things because somebody that I'm a fan of, and I grew up watching on Saturday Night Live. Victoria Jackson is scheduled to join us in a bit, and we're going to talk about some of her new projects and get her take on some of the crazy things that are going on in the world today. So keep it locked right here. It's me, Rich Valdez, on America at Night. Our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
That's Victoria Jackson singing the Bimbo song. You remember her from Saturday Night Live. Very talented actress and comedian. And Victoria Jackson is with us. Victoria Jackson, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rich. That was my favorite thing I ever did on the show. How did you know that?
Great producers.
Well,
lucky guess.
My new album sounds a little prettier than that because I have real musicians, and I mean, I did there, but I was kind of shouting to a crowd instead of singing quietly into a microphone. So my new album is prettier than that.
Well, I want to talk about this new album because there's a lot of people out there that are fans of yours that enjoyed the work that you did and are looking forward to this latest project of yours. So tell us, what inspired the new album and how did all of that come about?
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, this is the latest I've ever done an interview. My time, it's like 9:30 p.m.
So, it's actually my time. It's 10:22 Eastern time. I'm in New York. And this is probably the largest late night radio show that's syndicated in the country. It's been around for as long as I've been around. I'm 45. It used to be Larry King's radio show, then the late, great Jim Bohannon. And then somebody hit their head and picked me. So it's a great audience, and we're super happy to have you.
Thank you. Well, I am kind of a night person, but I never have to use my brain at night. I'm just awake being a vegetable. So I hope my brain works this late.
Oh, it's going to be fine. Now
Okay.
you're out of Tennessee, is that right?
Yes, we moved here 11 years ago to follow our grandchildren and daughters here, and it's my favorite place I've ever lived. It has my two favorite things, Jesus and show business.
Cool.
And it has 4 seasons. I'm from Miami, so I never grew up with seasons and hills, and great people here. And so we've been enjoying it a lot. My husband retired after 33 years as a cop in Miami, a SWAT team and helicopter police pilot.
Wow.
And so I was thinking, in my golden years, what am I going to do? And then I thought, well, I'm going to be a country singer-songwriter because, my new goal is to sing at the Opry and to hear one of my songs on the radio, and then I can die.
Oh, wow. Well, we don't want you to die just yet, but you've put the plan in motion for this new project of yours, and I want to know all about it because I know you have this. It's a new country music comedy album. How did you get the idea for this type of mashup?
Well, I've been writing poems and songs since I was 10 and playing the ukulele. And when I was in LA and I was 20 years old, I thought, how can I get a career or an agent or an audition? And there would be 30 blonde homecoming queen girls in the room against me when I went to audition for a commercial. And I thought, how can I stand out? So I started doing handstands for my auditions to try to, and say the lines upside down just to try to be noticed. And it worked sometimes. And the reason I could do a handstand was because my dad was a women's gymnastics coach, and I had to compete and work out every day for the first 18 years of my life. So that was my little trick I could do that no one else could do. Well, anyway, in 1980, stand-up comedy was a new thing, and there's very few women doing it. And I thought, if I could do stand-up, maybe someone would see me and say, oh, she'd be a good airhead on a sitcom. Or maybe I could get an agent or something. So I didn't really know how to make up jokes, but I knew how to write poems and songs. So at the Comedy Store one night, they assigned, or it was open mic night, so I had to wait till 1 a.m, and there was only 3 drunk men in the audience, 3 drunk Japanese businessmen, I think. And so I went up there and I did my Edith Ann impression from Lily Tomlin that I had done in high school. And after I got off the stage, Mitzi, the owner, said, "You never do someone else's material, especially if they're alive." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's when I'm getting the story mixed up, probably because it's late. But anyway, so I thought, I have to make up my own material. So I thought I'll do a poem upside down, and then I'll do a poem with the ukulele, which is called a song. And so I started doing a little act. And after 2 years of honing it, the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson had me on. And so Johnny Carson liked my ukulele songs. I did about 5 on his show. And then Lorne Michaels saw me on Carson, and he gave me an audition. Then I did about 5 or 6 songs I wrote on Saturday Night Live. So conquered LA, conquered New York. And I thought, well, Nashville's the perfect place to let my songs live. And that's kind of how I got the idea. And then I thought, well, I don't really know anybody in Nashville. I don't know who to call to try to get a music career. So I thought, well, if it's meant to be, if it's God's will, then I'll just let it happen organically. So it turns out I was in a comedy called Campin' Buddies with Ray Stevens, the songwriter. He wrote, everything is beautiful in its own way. You remember that?
I do. Victoria Jackson, I want you to stand by for 1 second. We're going to take a quick pause, and I want to remind everybody that we're on with Saturday Night Live legend Victoria Jackson, and she's got a brand new music comedy album out. We're talking about the album. We're going to talk about her story and a couple of other things that are out there. Plus your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Again, our guest is Victoria Jackson. You know her from Saturday Night Live. She's live with us late night, and she's complaining about it, but we're going to keep her awake. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back with Victoria Jackson.
For everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Amigos, we are on with Victoria Jackson. You know her from Saturday Night Live, and she's got a brand new comedy album as a country singer. She's in Nashville now. And Victoria Jackson, we left off with you making it big time, getting on Johnny Carson, getting an audition for SNL, and take it from there.
Well, thank you. I feel kind of bad talking about myself. Let's talk about you, Rich.
Okay, that's fine. I like talking about me.
Okay. Where are you from?
So, born in Brooklyn, New York, moved to Jersey on the other side of the Hudson when I was probably about 12, and to Hudson County, New Jersey, which is almost like the 6th borough of New York, honestly. It's pretty close. Get in and out of the city in about 20 minutes, right through the Lincoln Tunnel. And made my way in business. I became a barber, opened up a barbershop, and then I opened up a cell phone place, like around 19 years old, and I started getting involved with local politicians, ended up working for the governor in my state, and, did that for a while. And then I had the opportunity to get into talk radio as a producer for the great one, Mark Levin, and learned from him and learned from a lot of other amazing broadcasters. And then, I don't know, as God would have it, Jesus took the wheel, and they gave me a shot at being a substitute host on this show. And the next thing you know, voila, here I am. Big show. lots of amazing guests like Victoria Jackson, and here we are.
I love your story.
Thank you. I love your story, too. I would love to have been on Carson. I don't have a ukulele, though.
Yeah, it's sad the young people don't know him. He was the best.
Yeah, well, in many ways, we the bumper music for this show and the whole theme of it is old school talk radio, which really has a kind of Johnny Carson theme to it, which is how we kind of came up with the plan. But I want to get back to you because I think your story is amazing, and I think this new project of yours is something that people would enjoy. And I also wanted to pick your brain on a couple of things. Listen to this headline I'm taking a look at. It says, Vatican says transgendered people can get baptized. Can you believe that?
Oh boy. The Vatican, I don't respect the Catholic Church anyway, for a lot of reasons.
I don't think you're alone.
Yeah, they teach good works for salvation, and the Bible says that no one could be good enough to inherit eternal life. That's why Jesus had to die for us. John 3:16 and Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast." And I actually slipped that verse into my new comedy album because, you know, the Bible verse, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding.
Yeah, it's
in
Proverbs
all thy
3:5.
Yes. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths.
Mm-hmm.
So that verse, so I've always tried, because I became a Christian when I was 6. I asked Jesus into my heart. I was raised in a Christian home, Baptist. And and I went to a Bible college when I was 16. So my main goal in life has always been to be a soul winner, quote unquote, and to help souls find Jesus Christ. And all the other stuff is just ways and means to do it, I guess. My dad was witnessing to his gymnasts when he was the gym coach. I remember one time Maureen Fowler, he said, "Vicki, come over here." And we were in leotards with chalk on our hands, and it was a really weird childhood. You know, my dad's a Baptist deacon and a gym coach. And so I was in a leotard every day, which is being naked with my legs in the air. And then at my Christian school, they were saying be modest. And I was thinking, And then I thought, well, maybe there's a loophole for athletes, you know? I don't know. How do you resolve this issue, you know? And so it's weird to be in show business and be a Christian. When I was a teenager, my dad said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, I don't know, Maria and the Sound of Music, because she's married to the captain and lives in a mansion and has 7 kids in matching outfits and plays the ukulele on top of a mountain. And he's like, that sounds like an actress to me. And I had never thought of that as a thing, as a career. Right. I thought movies were magical because we did not have a TV when I grew up. And my dad only took us to G movies, Disney movies. Well, Disney used to be G back then, G-rated. And so I've had a very innocent heart, a very innocent brain. And so when he said, that sounds like an actress, and he said, I don't recommend it because show business and Christianity don't mix very well. But if that's what you want to be, give it 100%. And that was I was like, oh, that's a big sentence, you know? And so then I just kind of found my way, you know? Everyone has a different way in show business, and it's not like you can just get a degree and get a job. Very kooky path. But my dad was very creative, and so anyway, so Vatican and trans, how do you answer that question?
I'm thinking from the perspective of I just can't believe that's a headline that I'm actually reading.
Oh, I can't believe we live in a world people say, "What is a woman?" and that lady couldn't answer it. I don't believe we live in a world where children are cutting their organs off. I can't believe we live in a world where the things that are happening in Israel by Hamas, and I can't believe people have abortions. I can't, there's so much evil everywhere, but a lot of the time the evil really helps. Well, Rob Schneider from SNL said that the evil is making him believe more in God, because it just makes you see the difference clearer, than when we grew up, where believers and non-believers sort of had the same morals,
Yeah, right. Everybody was not stealing and killing, and nobody was talking about, 4-year-olds identifying as the opposite sex. And all of a sudden, here we are today with these polar divides. And I guess in one aspect in your business, it gives you material to make jokes. And from another aspect, it's just terrifying if you have children or grandchildren and you're thinking, man, what world are my kids growing up in?
I know. I'm not good at writing jokes, but I do have an hour stand-up act. Most of my jokes were written by my husband, the cop, or comics on the road who gave me a tag to a story or something. But my only joke I wrote about the new sexual immorality, it seems to be getting more and more immoral. Here's my new joke, and I think it's a little too edgy to tell in a Christian audience, but...
Well, it's late night, so we'll have some grace.
Yeah. It's dark outside, so yeah. This is my new little joke. I go, well, the LGBTQ movement has actually been good for my marriage, because I used to get jealous when a pretty girl would walk by my husband, but now I just go, dibs. I love that joke. I love that joke.
It's a good joke.
I kind of feel like all of the cheating husbands made women so that we're like, we think women are beautiful too. So I don't know, the whole feminist, I don't know. It's not, I just want everyone to be Amish. I want to live like the Amish. Modesty.
No electricity.
Yeah, whatever. Simple, modest, but I would be the worst Amish person because I'm too spoiled in the worldly things. But,
yeah. Victoria Jackson, I want to take a quick pause here and come back and talk about your involvement with the I Miss America tour. I've heard you're a part of that, so stick with us. Folks, we're on with Victoria Jackson, comedian. You know her from Saturday Night Live. She's got a brand new country music comedy album, and we're going to learn more about her involvement in the I Miss America tour. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We're on with Victoria Jackson from Saturday Night Live, and I want to go to a quick call here. We got Ralph from Port St. Lucie, Florida, calling on WPSL. Ralph, go right ahead. You're on with Victoria Jackson and Rich Valdez.
Yes, Rich. Good evening. Rich and Victoria, but the first thing I have to say is I am so thrilled of what I am hearing from your guest. I have been a big fan of talk radio for over a half of a century. I started listening to talk radio shows back in Joe Pine's day. You're talking a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
I have never heard scripture quoted over the talk radio. The attitude and the views that have been expressed, this is beautiful. This is just blowing my mind tonight. I teach Bible. I've been a Christian for 45 years at a small Baptist church here in Port St. Lucie, And Victoria, God bless you, sister. I mean, you're wonderful. And what you are standing for is what America now needs more than anything else, is the word to be out there. And the reason, Victoria, why we're seeing such horrible things happen, look what happened yesterday in the state of Ohio. Now abortions can be performed right up to birth. A 15-year-old girl can have an abortion without their parents being notified. What are we coming to in this country?
Thank you, Ralph. I appreciate it. And, you know, Victoria Jackson, I think Ralph, he really strikes a chord there. And to me, it makes all the sense in the world why we need to get back to the good old days, if you will. And tell us about your involvement with the I Miss America campaign.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ralph. I think the word of God is everything. And God said my word will not return unto me void. So that's the most important thing I'll ever say is God's word.
Amen.
And I read it every day. I have a group of women. China Phillips is on fire for Jesus. Her parents were the mamas and the papas.
Sure.
And
she's Wilson Phillips, no?
Yeah, she started Wilson Phillips, but she's now has California Preaching, a YouTube channel, and I'm very involved with it. And we read the Bible and pray together every day. Anyway, that's what our country needs. Yes, amen. Let's see. I want to tell you about my political awakening, but I didn't finish my story about my dad in the gym.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, one day he called me over. I was like 14. He goes, Vicki, come here. And he could never remember Bible verses or anyone's name. No good memory. And he said, tell Maureen John 3:16. And I said, okay. And I quoted it. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. I thought everyone knew that in the world. I learned it since I was 1 year old.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, Maureen, you've never heard that? And she said, no, I'm Catholic. And I said, Catholic people don't know John 3:16? And so then I just was kind of proud of my dad, like, that's pretty cool that he's like a gym coach and he's, a missionary too, because we're all missionaries if we're believers. But anyway, 30 years later, she comes up to me in a comedy club. She's bald. She has a wig on and a hat. And she said, Vicki, it's Maureen Fowler. I said, Maureen! Hadn't seen her in 35 years or whatever. She goes, hi, I have breast cancer, stage 4. And I just wanted to get your dad's phone number. I heard you were performing in my town in North Carolina. She goes, I wanted to tell your dad he's the first person who ever told me about Jesus. And I said, oh, man. And she says, and I accepted Christ as my Savior, and all my kids did. So we kind of died with her. We sent her Bible verses in the mail because her husband wouldn't let her read the Bible. She got in touch with my dad, thanked him for being the first one. And this means a lot to me. But anyway, I wanted to tell you my political awakening. Mm-hmm. I never voted until I didn't know anything about politics until one day I was passing the TV in the 90s and I heard Clinton saying, it depends what the meaning of the word is.
That was during the impeachment. Yeah, it depends on what you mean by the word is. Victoria Jackson, I got to take another quick pause. We're going to come right back so we can finish the story of your political awakening. Folks, we're on with Victoria Jackson from SNL, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, we're back with Victoria Jackson telling us about her political awakening. Victoria Jackson.
Yes. Well, I have to say it quick. So in the 80s, when I was on SNL, Reagan was the president. And I felt safe because he was destroying communism and the Berlin Wall was coming down and he made Gorbachev do that. And I was like, oh, good, because at my Christian school, we had to read George Orwell's book, 1984. And since I grew up in Miami, I heard all the stories of the Cubans escaping communism, coming over to Miami. and I was very aware of communism and how they were going to try to take over America from within, breakup of the family unit, et cetera, et cetera. And so I said to my husband, where do I vote? After I heard Clinton say that, I'm like, where do I vote? How do you vote? And when I was young, my dad just said, vote for anyone who has an R next to their name. Then in my 50s, I learned about rhinos. I said, what's a rhino? They go, that's a Republican in name only. I'm like, oh, a fake. And so then I got involved with an underground conservative group in LA that was started by Gary Sinise, and it was called Friends of Abe.
Oh, sure.
And they taught me a lot of things. Then I watched Glenn Beck with his chalkboard, and I learned about George Soros, and I learned about Black Rock recently.
Oh, yeah.
And I got in the Tea Party days around when Obama came on the scene, I was like, he's a communist and nobody knows it. And we got to tell them, and the media is not telling anyone. So I was desperate to tell America, knowing it would be career suicide, and it was. And I wrote a song called There's a Communist Living in the White House. Paul Kengor wrote a book called The Communist about Obama's past and his grandparents and his ties with Valerie Jarrett. And I wanted, to shout to people, wake up! Global communism, prophesied in the Bible, one world government, the whole deal. And so that's the song, I'm Not a Bimbo, is pretty accurate, right? But anyway, long story short, I started speaking at tea parties, and my agent dropped me in LA. They said, we can't send you out anymore because, you're an outspoken conservative, and that's okay because, our country, we need to keep freedom of religion and freedom of speech for my children's generation. So that's why I'm very happy about your radio show. Thank you for standing up for conservative things. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Victoria Jackson. And let everybody know how they can keep in touch with you and learn more about your new album and everything else you're working on.
Okay, VictoriaJackson.com.
Woo! That's fantastic. Folks, VictoriaJackson.com is the website. Victoria Jackson, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, Godspeed to you. Hope to have you back soon. Folks, there is more to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Our phone number, if you want to join us live, it's 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to jump into a few things tonight. The big story, we had the debate, the Republican debate. We're going to get into that a little bit, I'd say maybe top of the next hour. We also have Trump did a big rally today in Hialeah, Florida. Not a place where you usually see big political rallies, but it was televised on a few networks, and very interesting to see the results. Really packed house, although it was reported that it was empty, but I was watching it on TV, and it was jam-packed. We also have, let's see, what was the other big story? The chair of the Oversight Committee has issued subpoenas for the president's son, Hunter Biden, for the president's brother, James Biden, and for Rob Walker, a business associate of theirs, to testify before Congress regarding the Biden crime family investigation that Congress is pursuing. And my supposition is that once these are done and they got the testimony that they're looking for, their likely next step is going to be to find out what Joe Biden knew and when he knew it. And I'm curious to see if they will subpoena Joe Biden, and if they do, if he'll actually show up, because it's a trend for a lot of guys to just not show up and stand in contempt of Congress. What are they going to do, put shackles on Biden? I don't think so. So that's that. And the judge in Trump's civil fraud trial, his wife is a regular critic of President Trump on social media, and that's circulating out there as well. And there's also a lot of reaction to the story that broke yesterday of the manifesto that Stephen Crowder, conservative commentator, he obtained the manifesto from the Nashville shooter. There was a transgender shooter, something Hale. Is it Audrey Hale? And it is very, very bizarre. I want to get into it with somebody who understands this a little bit better than I. It's Doug Pierce. Doug Pierce is a First Amendment attorney representing the National Police Association, and his website, kingballou.com, that's KINGBALLOW.com. Doug Pierce, welcome to the program, sir.
Oh, I'm happy to be with you tonight.
So we have a lot to discuss with this, because there was plenty, right? I think plenty that was discussed in this manifesto, and Senator Josh Hawley made some comments about this when it happened, about this massacre when it happened. And I just, to refresh the audience's memory, I want to play a quick clip. Listen to this.
Mr. President, we must also tell the truth about what happened yesterday in Nashville. This murderous rampage, this taking of innocent life, was a horrific crime, but more specifically, it was a hate crime. A crime that, according to Nashville police, specifically targeted, that's their word, targeted, the members of this Christian community, the members of this religious institution, its students, its educators, its employees.
So again, I think Senator Hawley was right here in so much as this seemed to be a hate crime, obviously, at the time. And it seems even more clear here that they wanted to kill white Christians. That's what I'm gleaning from this. But what say you, Doug Pierce?
Okay. Well, it was just 3 pages that have been released, and it's been called a manifesto. But in the litigation that we have, and once again, the National Police Association that I'm involved with, we have filed a lawsuit under the open records law of the state of Tennessee to try to get this information. And as a result of that lawsuit, although we've not gotten anything, we have gotten the understanding that it's so much more than just 3 pages. But it's conceivable that these 3 pages are the heart of the matter. But like I say, the police seized a whole lot more than just those 3 pages. And I would say that it is fair to say that it was a hate crime to some degree. I think what it said is what the shooter said is she was opposed to all the white privilege. So that's why she went after the people at that school. Apparently, that's what the 3 pages that we've seen tell us.
Now, Doug Pierce, as the attorney for the National Police Association, you mentioned that you guys have filed suit. What's the genesis of your lawsuit? Why did you pursue legal action?
Well, of course, before we file the lawsuit, first we make a written request for these documents. And the documents that we requested primarily are the writings of the shooter. But also, even before we made that written request, we had already understood that, number one, no less than the chief of police of Nashville had stated that all of this stuff was going to be released, because they did release video, and that video, of course, is running on the internet. It's being aired on broadcast stations in Nashville all the time, just almost continuously. So that information is out there. But then the police chief began to reverse his position, and we had some idea that we weren't going to get it. So we also requested in our initial request documents relating to, I would just say, what sort of pressure was being applied to the police department to not allow public access to these documents. And of course, our request was denied, and for that reason, we took the next step, which was to file a lawsuit under the Tennessee Public Records Act. And so that's what started the litigation. And we filed first, but there are a total of 4 petitioning parties. And in addition to our lawsuit, we have a couple of media entities. We have the Tennessee Firearms Association, and we also have a Tennessee state senator who's joined in on the lawsuit because a number of legislators in the state have said, hey, you're coming to us saying we need to pass legislation to deal with this, but we need to see all of the writings involved to see that we're addressing the real problem. And so we're pursuing that litigation to try to get the documents, and so far we haven't gotten them yet. And it was kind of a big surprise when Stephen Crowder got the documents that he got.
Right. Well, it's being reported that the police that leaked that were all suspended for their role in leaking those documents. But I think the big question that I have, and I think that the audience has, is what's the big secret? Why are we treating this as Trump's Mar-a-Lago documents? Why is everything so top secret? Why don't they just release this quote-unquote manifesto?
Well, that's my big question as well. I'm not sure I can totally answer it, but, it's a problem when this information should be released, and we know it should be released because every time there is one of these terrible shootings, number one, in more than half the time, the shooter leaves behind some sort of writing or journal or manifesto, whatever, and they're released. And they're released for a very good reason, because the people that study this for a living, they're able to develop information, and in documented cases, dozens of times, other attempts at school violence have been thwarted and disrupted and prevented. So there is a good, strong reason to get this information out here. But in this case, it's not being let go. Now, all I can tell you is the official reasons as to why it's not being let go or being released. The Tennessee Public Records Act is a very simple concept, and that is, if it's a public record, the public has a right to it unless there is an exception. And in Tennessee, we have specific exceptions, and we got a bunch of them. It's something like 734 exceptions. And when pressed on the matter, the Nashville government came up with, I believe, approximately 5 reasons. Their very first reason was, well, we have an ongoing criminal investigation. And that is a valid excuse on its face if there was any reason to believe that there was going to be some prosecution. But, of course, in this case, the shooter was killed. And, the suggestion is, well, maybe someone else was involved. But there is no reason to believe that someone else was involved. And, as a matter of fact, the police have submitted declarations in the court case, and they've acknowledged that they don't have anybody in mind as to who it might be. They're just saying, well, maybe we might find somebody. And it's our position that's not good enough. So that's the number one reason. The number 2 reason is, well, the release of these documents might compromise school security. But number one, we don't want any documents that compromise school security. Number 2, the 3 pages that were released a couple of days ago, they in no way implicate school security. So, that's very questionable. And so ultimately what we get to is your question. All we have is, I would say, speculation, and I mean, the speculation can go from one end of the spectrum to the other, and it doesn't matter what you believe as to why it's not being produced. It's bad when we have a community that wants to have this information out there, and they all have the very same question that you have, and the question is not being answered.
Doug Pierce is the attorney for the National Police Association that has filed a lawsuit to get this manifesto released. And Doug Pierce, how do you expect this to unfold in the days to come?
Okay, well, I got to give you a little bit more background about the case. Like I say, so there's 4 separate lawsuits, and ours is the lead lawsuit. They're all consolidated. We were moving forward in the trial court, and what happened is 3 groups or entities wanted to intervene in the case, and that is that church, that school, the Covenant School, the Covenant Church, and the parents of the children who were at the school that day. And the people that have filed the lawsuit, like my group, we opposed that intervention. We believe that that's just not permitted under the Public Records Act. But the court said, okay, I'm going to allow the intervention. Now, a procedural, I won't say it's a quirk, but the way it reads in Tennessee procedural law is anytime an order of or a motion for intervention is either granted or denied, well, if you object to that, you've got to appeal right away. So we appealed, and so the matter is now before the Tennessee Court of Appeals, but not on the substantive issue. We've never gotten to the merits of the case. We've only gotten to whether or not these other 3 entities can intervene in the case. Right. And that was argued before the Tennessee Court of Appeals last month, and we're waiting on a decision. And once the court decides, then we have to figure out, well, is somebody going to take it up to the Tennessee Supreme Court, or are we going back down to the trial court for the decision on the merits? If it goes to the Tennessee Supreme Court, presumably at some point it's going to come back to the trial court for a decision on the merits. But that's sort of the lay of the land.
Got it. Well, we'll continue to monitor this and see what happens. Doug Pierce, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Let everybody know how they could keep in touch with you and follow the work you're doing.
Well, what did you have in mind? I didn't understand what you meant.
Website? You want to go the King Blue website? Is that the best way for people to follow you?
Yes, that'll be fine. Yes, and the
All
website
right.
is
Will do.
www.kingblue.com.
Outstanding. Doug Pierce, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
You bet. All right, folks, there is more to come straight ahead. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Not only are we back, but she's back. Who's she? Lock her up. That's right. Crooked Hillary, Crooked Hillary. Crooked Hillary is back. I don't know if she's just out there trying to make some noise or if she's trying to make a dent to maybe come back in some way, somehow. But Hillary Clinton was on The View today, and part of what she was talking about was how great of a job Joel Baboso Biden is doing. Listen to this.
I'm curious if there's a disconnect between perhaps the brand of the Democratic Party and President Biden. And I think one thing you and I agree on is Donald Trump is an existential threat to this country. Mm-hmm. But is Joe Biden, when 4 out of 5 battleground polls have him losing to Trump, the best person to take him on?
Yes, he is. And he's done a really good job as president. And, I like to evaluate people in public life on what have they gotten done for us. Yeah. And
hold on a second. Did she just say, and look at the great job he's done? What is she smoking? What great job has Joe Biden done? I mean, we've fudged the numbers so much on inflation that he can say inflation's down to 3.7%, but yet everybody and their mother is complaining about how much things cost. I don't know about you, but where I live, everything is still very expensive. We haven't gone back to any other low level of inflation when it comes to groceries or even gas. Gas is still higher than it ought to be, in my opinion. But anyway, let's continue with Clinton.
You know, you look at his record, despite all of the odds, he's really produced positive results. But more than that, we are a year out. And if you go back and look at
positive results. Positive results for who? For Hamas? For Putin? Unbelievable.
Comparable presidencies. Barack Obama was behind at this point in his reelection. My husband was behind at this point in his reelection. You know, until the candidates, the nominees are actually chosen, people are always saying, well, maybe there's somebody better out there. Let me look over here. You know, oh, I see somebody I like, or I just saw, you know, him give a speech or her position. That's natural. But what I think is important is that, as you say, Alyssa, that Joe Biden is not only proved that he's done a good job, but look at the alternative and look at what we would face as a country. And I think the election results yesterday should be very good news for President Biden.
Joe Biden has launched a war on energy in America with the Keystone Pipeline debacle that we had, with people losing their jobs in the energy sector, with his gross mishandling or sabotage, however you want to phrase it, of what's going on with global affairs, with Putin on the move, China's on the move, Hamas and Iran are on the move. What positive results is she talking about? We've got a disastrously open border that's facilitating human smuggling, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and drugs up the wazoo with fentanyl everywhere. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back with me, Rich Valdez.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez. And remember, at the top of the next hour, we start Open Phone America, our third and final hour where you get to weigh in on everything. But first, I want to discuss how Consumers Research has uncovered a smoking gun in a bombshell report on the Securities and Exchange Commission and their collusion with climate activists. And this is interesting because this new report was sent in a letter to the House Financial Services Committee, a smoking gun, if you will, revealing how the Securities and Exchange Commission colluded with a private climate activist company called Persephone. And I want to get to the bottom of that with Will Hild. I hope I said that right. He's Executive Director of Consumers Research, and he's with us now. Sir, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you.
Outstanding. Let's jump into this because it's my opinion that the federal government, all of it, not just the SEC, is always colluding with climate activists. But the least of those places would be the SEC. Tell us how this whole thing unfolds.
That's a great question. So, and to your point, you would think, what does the SEC have to do at all with climate policy? Wouldn't that be, operated by the EPA? Right. And you'd be right. That's sort of what the main issue is here. The SEC is promulgated a proposed new rule that would require every publicly traded company in the United States to start disclosing the amount of carbon emissions related to their operations. And in fact, the part of the proposed rule even goes farther than that and asks them to make all of their vendors report to them. And at some level, there's even a proposal to track customers' use of the product and the emissions related to that. So I just want to lay that out there because I don't think people realize, this is a huge mission creep and new territory that the SEC is trying to take on. And what our report found is that in promulgating and forming this rule, they worked hand in hand with a private small green tech startup company called Persephone, who would basically be the primary financial beneficiary of this rule, and they worked hand in hand to help craft the rule together.
This almost sounds like the strong arming that they did of boards of directors to kind of introduce the ESG protocol that seems to be floating around. And it seems like they're using that same model with the SEC, whether it's with vendors or whatnot, any way they can to kind of cap carbon with anything. It's odd, but it seems that that's the approach. It's very pervasive. So how did you guys stumble upon this?
Well, we were notified of some litigation, some FOIA requests that were being made by an organization called Energy Policy Advocates, and they provided us the documents. We went through and reviewed them and found these really startling revelations that lawyers at the SEC had been in direct communication with this company, Persephone. They had collaborated at one point. They had off-the-record meetings in violation of SEC requirements when it comes to recording meetings that bureaucrats have on rules to prevent exactly this type of corruption, and they backfilled many of the logs of these meetings that they'd had with Persephone. And it appears that one of the issues with the rule was the monumental costs of compliance that companies are going to face for this. In fact, this rule is more expensive than any other rule SEC has ever put out. So, and the SEC is required to put out a cost estimate. And one of the things that came up is that when looking at the cost estimates that were coming in from people who actually know what they're doing, places like the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, a number of different corporations that have a long track record of having to comply with SEC requirements in terms of financial disclosures, when they put in their cost estimates, they were even higher than what the SEC was willing to accept. And it appears that they coordinated with Persephone to have them put in a lowball estimate so that the SEC could use that to again, I know it sounds insane because the SEC is already admitting that this is the most expensive rule in its history, and yet it would have been, that estimate would have been even higher had they actually listened to people who were in that business rather than this green tech startup that, like I said, directly benefits from the rule. And they appeared to have coordinated behind closed doors in order to get that together.
So the rule is slated to go into effect soon, but it could be delayed till next year. What's the next step? How do we handle this? What do you expect to be the next shoe to drop?
Certainly. Well, our hope is that by notifying the House Financial Services Committee, which has oversight over the SEC and has been digging into the promulgation of this rule, how it was formed, and how it's going to affect the markets, that, shedding some light on the corruption that went into the building of the rule. I should just note that lawyer that I mentioned, the one that, coordinated with Persephone, had off-the-record meetings and then backfilled, right. Shortly after the rule was finalized, left the SEC to go work at a high-level position within the company Persephone. So she's helped them create a business for themselves, and now she's going to work for them. And one of the things that both Congress and hopefully the judiciary will review when it comes to the formulation of this rule and whether it stands, which I hope it does not, is whether the process that went into the rule, whether there was any corruption or what the courts use a standard called arbitrary and capricious. That's a term of art in the legal administrative law space. And my hope is that this report will help convince legislators, but also, if it gets entered into the record, in litigation over the validity of the rule, that it might get overturned.
Oh, great work in uncovering this, and it seems to be one more way that the government is allowing itself to be an arm of climate activism, and we, the taxpayer, end up paying the price, and small businesses as well. Doug Pierce, excuse me, wrong page. Will Hild, let everybody know what you guys do at Consumers Research and how they could keep up to speed with everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, we're the nation's oldest consumer protection organization, and our main focus right now is pushing back on the very thing you described, Rich, which is this ESG push, both in the realm of the government, but also in the realm of Wall Street with big asset managers like BlackRock and State Street, pushing these net zero standards that are going to lower our standard of living, raise prices from the grocery store to the gas station on all consumers everywhere. And so we spend a lot of our time focusing on this ESG scam on the consumer. And anyone who would like to learn more can visit us at consumersresearch.org. That's consumersresearch.org.
Fantastic. Well, Hild, we'll definitely have you back for an update on how this continues. And I appreciate you staying up late to bring us up to speed. It's I want to say disappointing, but not surprising that the government is doing this, especially in the current administration. Again, thanks for your insight. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. Folks, more to come straight ahead. We continue our discussion on everything that's happening in the daytime here at nighttime. And something I wanted to touch on that I mentioned earlier was the Republican debate. We'll hear a couple of clips on that as well, plus your calls. Open Phone America is coming, so you could start getting the calls in now. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. And lots going on in the southern part of the country. We had the Republican debate where the candidates that are not Trump were debating one another. And there was a lot of barbs being traded back and forth with several candidates. And one of the clips of audio that I have here that I want you to hear is Vivek Ramaswamy. And he starts schooling people on Israel, and then he just goes in for the jab against Nikki Haley. Listen to this.
The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as president of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But I want to be careful to avoid making the mistakes from the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first, or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
Wow, shots fired. He said Nikki Haley is Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels. Now, I don't know why these guys are duking it out. I guess because she's polling better than he is, but I don't know that anybody's going to really appreciate that. Maybe they will. I don't know. I think it always looks a little heavy-handed when you if you're going to criticize a woman, you got to be real effective, right? It's got to be on point. Unless you are always criticizing women. If you're always criticizing women, then there's no shock value. But this was kind of shocking, and it to me seemed a little bit outside of the Vivek Ramaswamy character that he's built thus far. I think people say he's a likable guy, he's a smart guy, and this little attack on Haley, I don't know. I would bet that if we were looking at one of those polls where the people had the little meter in their hand, that his popularity dipped a little bit with that. But this was the type of swinging and mudslinging that was going on with at the third GOP debate in Miami, Florida, and this all happened in the first 20 minutes. He says that she's corrupt because she took a job with Boeing and whatnot, and she decided to fire back. We have a clip of that as well. Listen to this.
Ramaswamy, we've talked about this. You campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which was about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my daughter out of your voice.
Adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point. You have her supporters propping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy answer is actually to say that we're just going to ban one app.
All right, so now she ends up calling him scum, and I have to say, nobody should really ever bring somebody's child into these things, especially if they're not a child like Hunter, right? Hunter is a public figure. He's out there. He's doing his own thing. He's got these porn films that are all over from his laptop. That is on him, right? He is out there. I've never heard of Nikki Haley's daughter, and nobody's heard of my daughter unless I brought them up. So I would say, yeah, you don't do that. And, good for her for standing up for her kid. And I couldn't help but think it sounded a lot like the Oscars where Will Smith was shouting at Chris Rock saying, "Keep my wife's name out your mouth." Right? You got Nikki Haley there shouting, "Leave my daughter out of your voice." I thought it just seemed so eerily reminiscent. And this is the back and forth that was happening between Ramaswamy and Haley, both vying for, I guess, fourth place. Or is it third? I don't know if DeSantis is still up on them. But again, this is a first in my time observing politics. Never, ever seen a presidential contest where a bunch of people are vying for the nomination, and the guy who's likely going to win and who's clearly ahead by a lot doesn't even show up. So I'm going to say Trump, yet again, probably won the debate tonight and didn't even show up. All right, folks, we continue with our program straight ahead. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. Open Phone America is coming up shortly. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. With Rich Valdez.
So therefore, do you think we did the right thing by not participating? Somebody said, one of the dumber ones, he doesn't have the courage to stand up. Well, listen, I'm standing in front of tens of thousands of people right now, and it's on television. That's a hell of a lot harder to do than a debate.
That's former President Trump at a rally Save America rally in Hialeah, Florida earlier tonight, and he was explaining why he didn't attend the debates. And I saw it on television, and I was flipping back between Newsmax and Real America's Voice, two good channels, and they were both covering the Trump rally. And the debate was interesting because a lot of people took swipes at Trump, Tim Scott among them, Chris Christie among them, and Governor Ron DeSantis as well. And I think we have a clip of DeSantis. Go ahead.
Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than where we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we want a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it.
So while DeSantis was on stage in Miami, letting everybody know that, Trump spent too much, that Trump didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall, et cetera, and that he owes it to the people of Florida, Trump was receiving a street named after him from the mayor of Hialeah, which is right outside of Miami, naming it the Donald Trump J Street or Way or Boulevard. And it was really just interesting. And to see the impact of both, again, the rally being carried on television, as well as a massive crowd there, it just really is an interesting question, So I guess I'll pose that to you guys. Do we blame the losses of Republicans on Donald Trump? And do you think Trump should be at the debates? Should he not be at the debates? Is this his fault? Looking to hear your responses to those questions and more during Open Phone America. Open Phone's coming up right now, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez. And the question that we've posed is, are we looking at a situation where the Republicans lost because of Trump, as Governor DeSantis was posing? And I'm not sure what the answer to that is. So I want to turn to you guys, the callers. Plus, we've had a series of guests tonight that I think were just, all of them, outstanding, bringing a lot of really valuable information to the program. So I want to get your opinions on that as well. It's Open Phone America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to go to Paul. Paul is in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Paul, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich. Hey, I got to hand it to you. You picked the winner with Victoria Jackson.
Oh, she's terrific, isn't she?
Yeah, she was just what the doctor ordered for me. I'm telling you, she talked about some of the comedians in the past, like Johnny Carson. I think of Rich Wright. He was one that I really enjoyed. And then, of course, when Carson was on, you never knew who was going to be sitting on the couch unless you were there for the opening. And it was a trip down memory lane that I needed, so I wanted to thank you for that. You do a great show every time. I haven't had a bad one that I've listened to yet. And so
thank
just
you.
keep up doing what you're doing, man. You're doing great.
I appreciate it, Paul. And, I really enjoyed Victoria Jackson as well. I loved the fact that she was funny, yet she brought some serious topics to the table and kind of a wake-up call, about the direction that America's headed in. And it was just refreshing to me to see that, not all in Hollywood are lost, right?
Right. I did have a serious note really to speak about briefly, and this war between Israel and Palestine has really hit me pretty hard. I did a lot of studying on the Holocaust, and it's brought back a lot of really bad memories, if you will, but things that need to be discussed and brought out into the open, I believe, so that the healing can begin as well. This anti-Semitism is really dangerous. It's insidious. It gets underneath the skin and it just grows boils almost. And the reason why I brought this up is because the first death camp that the Nazis made was called Dachau. And this is the 90th anniversary of Dachau being put into operation. And it was just a few miles outside of Berlin. And yet the New York Times never reported the fact that they were taking the Jews out there to kill them. There was no concentration camp. It was a death camp, and that's exactly what it was for. And it's been 90 years, and I don't think we've learned anything. And it saddens me deeply.
You and me both. I mean, it's a horrible thing to see what's going on. It's horrible to see how the Jews are being treated. It's horrible to see how the Palestinians, those that live amongst Hamas and don't want to be a part of it. I was scrolling through social media, maybe today or yesterday, and I saw a video of a guy who was a video of the voice of a guy and like an audio clip. And the guy was saying, look, the reality is I live here, and the people that are stopping me from gainful employment is Hamas, because for me to have a good job, I have to go into Israel. And I can only get into Israel if I'm not affiliated with Hamas. And the obstacle is being presented by Hamas. And he said, nobody's voted for these people. Maybe they did, years ago when they first came in, but there's been no subsequent elections. And people live in fear. And he went on to say, it wasn't the Israelis that killed my brother. It was Hamas. It wasn't the Israelis that did X, Y, and Z. It was Hamas. And the point I've been making is, it's not the poverty, the lack of resources, the lack of water, the lack of power. This is their territory, not Israel's. And Israel has been out of there for a number of years. So it's Hamas that's not providing water. It's Hamas that's not providing the necessary infrastructure. And it's sad to see those people that, I know there are some guests even that we've had on this program saying, they were elected by a major mandate of the people. But I just liken it back to being a New Yorker or living in New Jersey and people saying, oh, you get the government you deserve. I don't know if I agree with that. I think some people don't agree with the current government that they have in New York or New Jersey, but we have to live with it because there are others that have voted, and, that's how this thing works. So I feel badly for the people in Palestine that are, kind of held hostage by Hamas, figuratively speaking. I feel horrible for the people that are actually being held hostage by Hamas in these underground tunnels, because the whole thing is just absolutely horrid, in my opinion. It's just a terrible, terrible situation. So, Paul, I appreciate your kind words, and thank you for your insight on that. because I think it's important to discuss. Now, I want to continue with our calls across America. Let's go to Abe. Abe is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on WRNN. Abe, go right ahead.
Good evening, Rich. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
So I wanted to say, regarding the attacks of October 7th and the division that it's caused in this country, with people saying that, this happened as a direct result of oppression or, 70 years or 75, however many years, that they feel, that the Palestinians have been oppressed, and that somehow that's just justification for the brutal attacks. And I think the clincher was when, Obama, and I'm loath to call him President Obama, comes out and says, that there's blame on both sides. So, first of all, directly criticizing a U.S. ally for decades and going against, the American policy of supporting Israel, that's the first thing. But for a president or an ex-president to make those statements, to me, is a disgrace. It almost rises to the level of treasonous. And I'm wondering, why we aren't talking about maybe stripping. Rich, can you hear me?
I do. I hear you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm wondering why we're not even talking about stripping, ex-President Obama of some of his presidential benefits after a statement like that. I mean, it really should be an outrage. I think, and what I also wanted to say, America has always been an extremely moral country. And I believe this, and I think many other people believe that we've been blessed as a country because we're moral and because we're decent and because we reach out and help nations around the world. I've traveled to many places, for instance, like the Caribbean, and, I found U.S. troops there that were helping to build roads and we've
Right.
done that all over the world. We're an extremely moral country. We don't embrace brutality and violence. And my fear is that the people that don't understand that lack a basic education. They've been possibly indoctrinated or brainwashed, or they're just foolish. And as a republic, we run the real risk of one day possibly, God forbid, being led by a dictator because of what's happened to the people in this country. And I think if we don't speak up, and really I'm calling upon the moderate Democrats who've been extremely silent through this whole thing, except for a few statements by Hillary Clinton, denouncing these attacks. And I think we need to hear from some of these moderate Democrats because a lot of their peers or colleagues or whatever have gone off the deep end. And I think, there needs to be a change.
I agree with you, Abe. What Obama did was horrible, but again, disappointing, but not surprising, right? Because this has been his posture on Israel, I think, throughout. He's always been sort of very friendly towards Iran and was always not that friendly to Israel. I think we've seen Biden the same thing. Biden is there saying, we're going to support Israel every way we can. We're going to do whatever we can do. And sends a couple of carriers as a gesture. But in reality, he sends the money to be spent in Gaza and says, listen, and if you spend it on bad things, I might not send more. So be careful. It's just really, the whole thing is just screwed up. And He's just showing us who he really is. And that's one thing about Obama. I think he's always kind of showed us who he is if we paid attention to what he was saying. But so many people get caught up in the emotion of it, the rhetoric that the Squad and others that, you know, it's almost like sport to hate Jews. And fascinating to me. I don't understand what the Jews have done to these people and why people enjoy hating Jews as much as they do. But it always kind of leads me to believe that the Nazis are alive and well. Maybe not like they were in Germany back in the day, but they're definitely still here. And their mission to eradicate the Jews is ongoing. And they've recruited new brown shirts, new Gestapo, new foot soldiers in Hamas and Iran and others that, you know, where there's a shared hatred of the Jews. And that's the only benefit, I guess, that we could say has come from all of these atrocities, is that daylight's the best disinfectant. And now we can see what's what, and we know who's who. And that is something that I think we need to pay close attention to so that we don't get caught up in normalizing Jew hatred. Abe, thank you for the call. Big shout out to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Great station, great people there in South Carolina. And we're coming back to the rest of your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And the migrant crisis continues. And Alejandro Mayorkas today was responding to questions from members of Congress, and he's usually on TV spewing his silliness as well. And we've got a clip of audio of Secretary Mayorkas. Listen to this.
Is the administration open to working with Congress to include policy reforms that would deal with the underlying reasons for the surge as we consider the supplemental?
Vice Chair Collins, we need the funding that we are requesting immediately, that we are requesting in the supplemental. We have advocated from day one for immigration reform. It is unanimous that our broken immigration system is in dire need of reform.
I was wondering who that lady was. And yes, it is Susan Collins. How could you mistake that voice? Anyway, so yeah, Mayorkas, this is his grand old response. Our immigration system is broken. Wow, thank you, genius. Fantastic. This guy's terrific. Let's make him Secretary of Homeland Security. Unbelievable. That's the case. He also went on to say that they're requesting more money. We need more funding because, of course, you know, the problem at the border is a lack of money, not a lack of people with scruples actually keeping people out of the country. No, it's a lack of money. That is the problem. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, let's get to your calls. Let's go to Ken, Lansing, Michigan, WILS. Ken, go right ahead.
Good evening, Rich. I didn't get a chance to listen to you earlier. I just turned you on a couple minutes ago, but I was watching a couple of videos on my phone of Chicago. And what it was two different neighborhoods in Chicago. One was called the 12th Ward, Brighton Park. And the other one was I didn't catch the name or the actual ward, but they have what they call aldermans in Chicago, I guess, as their people that represent that area. So anyways, the one neighborhood was almost completely all black, and the other neighborhood, Brighton Park, was the most diverse neighborhood you could imagine. But the black community was so upset and so pissed off that their alderman was told on a Friday that their community center, which serves the adults, the elderly, and the sports teams for the kids in that neighborhood, and one of the women got up and said, I hope you know that this is a very valuable spot for our children. A lot of these boys and girls don't have a father in the home, and their coaches are mentors to them and to teach them how to act as adults and be proud black men. But you guys didn't come in here and say a damn thing to us about taking over our center. And it apparently was already signed and done. They were just letting them know what's happening, and tough luck for you people. And they were so pissed off, Rich.
I bet they were, Ken, and rightfully so. We have to get a grip on families again. We have to start reversing this trend, because once the family is totally gone, there's really not much left in society. And I think we're seeing that daily. Folks, we continue with your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
A head-on crash today in South Texas left 8 people dead. Officials say police were chasing a suspected human smuggler when the driver crashed into an SUV, killing 2 people from Georgia. The 21-year-old driver and 5 passengers were killed. Officials have confirmed that several of those killed were from Honduras.
That's a report from CBS News, and according to the Department of Public Safety in Texas, 8 people, including a suspected human smuggler driving from Houston, were killed in a crash near San Antonio. This is in Zavala County, Texas, and they were killed in a 2-vehicle fatal car crash on Highway 57. It was a Honda coming from Houston, smuggling people. They identified 67-year-old Jose Lerma and 65-year-old Isabel Lerma of Georgia as the occupants of the Chevy SUV. The Honda driver was evading arrest from the Zavala County Sheriff's Office when the driver passed an 18-wheeler in a no-passing zone. The driver drove head-on into a Chevy SUV, causing the SUV to burst into flames, killing the driver and passenger, who were from Georgia. Wow, God rest their souls. And authorities say 5 passengers in the Honda, including the suspected smuggler, were killed as well. A total of 8 people were killed in the crash. Department of Public Safety officers confirmed several of the deceased were from Honduras. The identities will be released a little bit later once they let their next of kin know. And they had to shut down the highway for a little bit. And this is, again, just one story that is the result of Biden's recklessness, Biden's human smuggling operation, the biggest one I've ever seen in my life. And it's just beyond me that we're having this. It leaves me somewhat speechless. I know it's a rarity for me to be, but when good old Joe El Baboso Biden, him and his hairy legs, we're going to keep the border open, we're going to let everybody in. I mean, this is insanity. This, to me, I think Hispanics in particular, and Biden's losing support with Hispanics and African Americans, but I feel that most Hispanics should look at this administration and say, you know what? You guys have been the most reckless, derelict administration ever. I think that more Hispanics have died, and everybody else. I mean, it's not just Hispanics, but, there's a good percentage of the people coming across the border are Hispanics. And not to mention the Chinese that are coming for their sleeper cells, and the North African men that are coming in that look like, military-age men. That seems to be the consensus on the street, that these guys are all here for something. I would say, when you have young men, they want to work. But that's me giving the benefit of the doubt and being a pretty positive person. But ultimately, this is all Biden's fault, in my opinion. And Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, we have another clip from him that I wanted to play, because he's there, and all he wants to do is ask for more money. He feels that that's the only solution. And I can't help but think we have an absolute clown show going on in Washington right now. And it's just crazy to me that this is where we are. But listen to Secretary Mayorkas at a hearing today saying that the Biden administration has pursued a very comprehensive strategy to manage the southern border. Listen to this.
Our administration has pursued a comprehensive strategy to manage this unprecedented migration. Our strategy includes expanded lawful pathways for migration, strengthened consequences for unlawful entry at the border, removing a record number of individuals found to be ineligible for protection under the law, and increased partnership across the region to curb irregular migration.
To curb irregular migration, unprecedented migration. The reason it's unprecedented, sir, is because you're doing nothing to stop it. And he even alludes to that. Our strategy includes expanded lawful pathways for migration. How is your strategy to close the border to expand lawful pathways for migration instead of suspending lawful pathways for migration and suspending any illegal ones too? I mean, this is the problem. He is the problem. Biden is the problem. Absolute crazy town. Really, really is. And that's why I'm happy that Senator John Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, he was also at a hearing today, and he pressed Mayorkas on border safety. And then he told him that he didn't think that he was qualified to even manage a Costco food court. Listen to Senator John Kennedy.
And the first thing that President Biden did, and you did when you took office, was abolish our safe third country policies. Now, in 2023, this is Senator Hovind's chart. What percentage of the illegal immigrants who came across the southern border were not from Mexico? Do you know?
Senator, I know that third country nationals has been on the increase, the number of encounters.
What percentage?
I can certainly.
You don't know, do you?
I can certainly.
It's 71%. Okay, are not people who are not from Mexico. So if we had a safe third country policy, that means that 71% of the 8.4 million people that if you have allowed to come into our country illegally, let me be conservative and use 6.6 million because the 8.4 includes gotaways. 71% of the 6.6 million people that you have allowed into our country illegally would not be hurt in any way. They could claim asylum from political or religious or racial persecution, but they would have to do it in another country, more than likely Mexico. Is that not the case?
Senator, that is an incomplete and inaccurate accounting of the safe third country.
And did you not say when we last spoke, and I proposed that, you thought it was a bad policy?
Senator, let me share with you a prerequisite to a safe third country agreement, and that is...
No, I'm almost out of time, and I'm not going to let you filibuster, Mr. Secretary.
Well, Senator, I have to say that 60 minutes...
Well, I'm just not going to let you
Senator
do it.
Kennedy, if he can respond, you're out of time, but I'd like to...
It's my time, Madam Chair, and I'm going to use it the way I want.
Your time is expired.
Well, you let others go on. Here's what I think, Mr. Secretary. I think you're a smart guy. Now, there are only one or two things going on here. Either you're not qualified to manage a Costco food court, or you believe in open borders.
Either you're not qualified to manage a Costco food court, or you believe in open borders. And he says he's a smart guy. And look, I'm going to be safe here and fair and give him the benefit of the doubt and say Mayorkas is a smart guy as much as, any other evil genius, right? And I'm not saying he's a genius, but I am saying he's smart to try and get one over on you and to play dumb the way he does. But ultimately, these policies are wreaking havoc on America, and they're not helpful at all. I don't know. You let me know what you think. The phone lines are open, 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So Biden has wreaked havoc on America with his disastrous border policy, with his economic policy, which does not account for energy consumption and housing costs as part of inflation, yet he claims that it keeps going down and it's only at 3.7%. The war on energy continues. The wars that I'm going to blame Biden for starting continue to ramp up across the globe. And I can't see too many areas where Joe Biden's doing well, right? I just can't see. But let's see what you guys have to say about the border and everything else that's out there. Let's go to Steve, Cleveland, Ohio, WEOL. Steve, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Easy listening in the evening. How are you, Rich?
My man, how are you, sir?
Good. Hey, I heard something. I won't mention any names, but Trump did say today. I heard that somewhere else that there's 10 million in there now, but he thinks at the end of the next year it'll be 15 million. And
wow,
he has to have records and everything, because when you think about the FBI was being there, if did that real let's go invade the president. They just made it look so official. They had to take all those boxes of all the president's private, classified information he wasn't supposed to have. They had to stack all that stuff in the bathroom. They were there for like 12, 14 hours. It's like, how'd that look? And I make it look like a Big Mac, picture or something, or a Whopper. Let's make it all look good and get some pictures, and let's kind of make them. I mean, if you think about it, the person, I won't mention his name, if you wanted to destroy America, would you do anything different that they're doing? If you put it in categories, and the border being, to me, the biggest.
That's a good question.
You want to start. Yeah, just think. They had all these executive orders already printed, already ready to go, and in their binders and everything on the desk when Biden was, the very first day.
Yeah, Steve, it's a great comment, and I'm really thinking about it. I'm thinking, what might I do different if I was a despot, dictator type? And I guess just more of what they're doing, and and maybe more heavy-handed, right? That's the only thing that's missing. So it's kind of like there are people that go out there and kill people, and then there are people that go out there and gaslight people into killing themselves. And I feel like we're in the latter, right? Americans are slowly wanting to give away so much of the liberty that we have. And people, when I say stuff like that, they're like, name one thing that's changed. Oh, a lot of things. I mean, this whole push towards electric vehicles, the fact that the government literally can turn off your vehicle with Wi-Fi if they don't like the amount of miles you're driving, the direction you're driving in, etc. That's not the case in a gas-powered vehicle, right? It just isn't. It may eventually become the case, but not good. Not good at all. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think that they're doing a great job at changing the fabric of the country. I don't think they want to destroy. Maybe they do. They want to destroy what's already there so that they could rebuild in the way that they would like. That's kind of very dependent on them. But ultimately, we have to do better as a country because, I mean, like you said, Mayorkas can't be that stupid. He seems to be getting away with a lot. Anyway, we're going to continue with your calls and more. Steve, thanks for the call. Big shout out to WEOL, great people in Ohio. And the phone number, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, and we go to your calls. Let's go to Jim, Alexandria, Minnesota, KXRA. Jim, go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, I was just curious why you're piling on Rich on Ron DeSantis and the other male. I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
Oh,
but,
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, Ramaswamy. The guy's a very, very intelligent guy, and he made some very, very good points about the fact that Nikki Haley has enriched herself with Boeing and several other different companies since she left office. And then I think it was DeSantis that said something about her daughter being on Twitter. You know, I'm just curious. If somebody's black, you can't say anything about them. If somebody's a female, and especially if she's a black female, you can't say anything about them. I just wonder what's going to happen when Michelle Obama decides she's going to enter the race because the Democrats are pushing her to get in. I just wonder what's going to happen when the Republicans start piling on Michelle Obama. Are you going to stick with them when they start coming out about the truth about him, which I think, Joanne Rivers said it best about him being Michael. And I just wonder what's going to happen when the Republican candidates start piling on her when she gets in the race.
Well, I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, we've seen this. I mean, it's nothing new. We had a guest on the show recently who wrote a book and made a movie about Michelle Obama in 24. I asked him if he thought there was any validity to the idea that she's a male or was born a male or anything like that. He seemed to think that was nonsense, and he had a lot of information on her. And I just don't know that that's what elections are made of. I don't know that people saying that Michelle Obama, a.k.a. Big Mike, is going to win or lose an election. I do think Michelle Obama is incredibly popular with a lot of people, especially people who don't even care about politics and might vote because they typically do. Most people don't vote all year the next year, the third year, but every fourth year, they'll go and they'll wait in line if they have to cast their vote for president, especially if they think they can make history and vote for the first black woman president. So I'll pile on anybody that I have to, that I feel like I have something to say about. I think Ramaswamy didn't, maybe you thought he made a good point. I didn't think it was that great. I think he could have said what you said, that she enriched herself and she did this and that. I said, I think calling her Dick Cheney in heels, while it was funny and it's going to get him mentions on shows like mine and others, I think ultimately, I don't think he's really helping himself. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be a poll that comes out and says Ramaswamy takes the lead because of his comments. I just don't think that's the case. And with DeSantis, again, I understand he's there. He's trying to beat Trump. He's trying to win a nomination. He's going to do what he's got to do. I just don't. I would not blame the losses of Republicans in different areas solely on Trump. I'd say he endorsed, let's see, Daniel Cameron and maybe somebody else. And did they win? No. So do I blame that directly on Trump? No. Trump's not even on the ballot right now. It's not even a down ballot race where he's in it. Now, if you tell me that everybody down the ballot from Trump is going to lose next year, oh, that's a different story, because obviously he's at the top of the ticket, and we can try to analyze it that way. But right now, this is a guy that's in court every other day, defending himself, trying to run a political campaign as well in different states across the country. And it's remarkable to me that he's even able to pull it off this well. I think to myself, if I had all these legal issues and I was in court in different places, would I have the wherewithal to run for president at the same time? Likely not, right? I just don't think I would. So I have to give him a lot of credit for what he's doing. And the others, they're smart guys and they're doing well. They're just not really contributing to the conversation. DeSantis is beating up Trump, Ramaswamy's beating up Nikki Haley, and nobody's really learning their policies. Meanwhile, the rest of America already knows Trump's policies because he's served in office already. Anyway, thanks for the call, Jim. I appreciate it. Sarah, sorry I didn't get to you. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.